Go.
No, it should. Yep, it's live. Yep, it's live. Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Scrappy Fan 92, and this is another episode of Storytime with Scrappy. With us today is Harry.
Yeah, I still exist. Hello.
Harry.
Dead.
Hi. What? Yeah, I just said I exist.
Harry.
What the hell? Can you not hear me?
Hey, hello, Harry.
Hi. Could you not hear me?
For the most part, no.
Well, hi.
Hello.
Tanner is here, and against his better judgment, he will be reprising the role of you-know-who. And thankfully, with us here today to take over narration duties tonight is Nova.
Hello.
It is a good day.
There's gonna be a lot of dialogue, so don't get your hopes up too much.
Alright.
Once more, we are reading the Love Live fanfiction Till We Make Our Ascent by Ottermelon.
I was not sitting in a position good for voice acting.
That's okay, I never am.
Honestly,
I
I'm
chose
gonna
them.
start getting a better recording setup soon, because right now I'm sitting with my laptop and I have a sock over my microphone. My USB microphone, so not the ideal mic setup.
Probably. Oh gosh, my throat. At least you perform the due diligence of putting a sock on your mic. So, where were we? Ah, yes. Last time we left our heroes, Umi, formerly of the group Muse, was having reacclimation issues. She has met many of her old friends except for one, and this chapter is about that one who's missing.
Indeed.
This is Till We Make Our Ascent, Chapter 5, City Lights and Traffic Sounds.
Like the title of an 80s song or an album. Just a lyric, really.
Tell me when I'm gonna start reading.
Nova, you may begin at your leisure.
Alright. Umi looked up to the sight of the familiar storefront greeting her. Late mornings on weekdays lent themselves to slower business, and Homero's street shops was certainly no exception, even with Christmas just 2 days away. The surrounding streets were deserted, leading Umi to believe that the inside of the store was no different, except for one person. The thought of facing Hanukkah again still terrified her, even though, or perhaps partly due to the fact that more than a year and a half had passed since their last meeting. It didn't help that said last meeting didn't end on particularly good terms. Umi squeezed her eyes shut and inhaled deeply. She had put this off long enough, and Kotori's words to her resounded in her mind. He said he wants to see you again. She glanced down, smoothing out her woolen sweater. It was a purely nervous gesture, since she doubted that woolen sweaters were even capable of being wrinkled. Still, she had spent far too much time in front of the mirror earlier that morning, picking out, and rejecting, a number of outfits before remembering that it probably didn't matter what she wore. She was meeting up with her friend, not going on a date. Now, She slid open the door to the sound of chimes, the pleasant and painfully familiar aroma of homemade sweets greeting her. A girl stood behind the counter with her back to Umi, white strings of her apron tied around her back. Her hair was tied up in a similar manner, but its striking orange was unmistakable. Umi stood in the entranceway, mouth open, her words failing to call for the attention of her friend. If that feeling was still mutual even after all this time. Fear also constricted the words in her throat, for she was almost too scared to see Honoko's expression after she turned around. Surprise? Sadness? Disgust? Imagining those expressions on a face that had been so consistently bright and fearless 2 years ago terrified Umi to the point that her feet almost uprooted her from the entranceway. But the instinct to flee kicked in too late. Honoka turned around, with a rehearsed greeting of welcome to our dying on her lips as their eyes met. She was making it painfully obvious that seeing Umi again shocked her, so Umi herself similarly failed to find anything to say to the situation. They stood there in silence, less than 10 feet and almost 2 years worth of lost time between them. Then...
Sorry. Umi-chan?
Honoka's expression, wide-eyed and vulnerable, didn't change as the name tumbled out.
Hello.
She responded automatically before realizing how stiff she sounded.
Honoka,
She jumped as the girl in question flew out from behind the counter, and in a moment she found herself staring into the deep blues of Honoka's eyes. She looked down and saw how, even as Honoka's hands remained firmly rooted to her sides, her fingers, dusty with flour and powdered sugar, twitched achingly. A cruel part of Umi's mind suggested that, perhaps, Honoka wished to throw her arms around her, but instead Umi felt her hands grasp within her friend's own.
Oh my gosh!
Honoka whispered, her eyes still wide in reverence.
You didn't Oh gosh. You didn't tell me you were coming?
Slowly, as she raised her joined hands to where Umi could see them, a smile began to tug at the corners of her mouth, but it vanished before it could fully form as a realization took its place.
Aren't you... Gosh darn it. Aren't you tired? It's a really long train ride home, right?
She dropped Umi's hands and leapt back.
Oh, jeez, I haven't even offered you anything yet. I'm the worst.
Umi's eyes tried, and failed, to keep up with Honoka as she hurried from the oven to the microwave to the stove. Somehow, she hadn't managed to slip in a word edgewise, and the thought made her smile. Less than a minute into the reunion, things could have been going much worse. Maybe, just maybe, things could go back to the way they had been. Umi sat in the family living room, trying her hardest not to fidget. She had been ushered there by Honoka, who insisted that she make herself comfortable.
It wouldn't be... it wouldn't be right if I made you wait behind the It wouldn't be right if I made you wait behind the counter like you were any old customer.
Honoka had declared in the face of Umi's protests, and so she was all but pushed into the living room, and left there while Honoka darted back to the shop front to gather the sweets. Honoka's tuneless humming emanated from front of the shop. Umi took the time to glance around, and although it wasn't the best indicator, she didn't see much that had changed from the last time she had been here. A TV sat in the corner opposite the entrance, and various cabinets and shelves lined the walls, but the room was otherwise sparse as far as decorations were concerned. It wasn't long before the sliding door was thrown open again. Honoka joined her at the table, sitting down on the opposite side while she set a plate of sweets down between them.
Here, Umi-chan. I bet you missed our sweets while you were away, didn't you?
She gestured to the plate with a wide smile. Umi took in the assortment of desserts that lay before her, ohagi, mochi, and others were neatly lined up for her to take. She picked up a ball of manju and examined it, smiling nostalgically.
I tried not to think about it too much.
She bit into it, a sigh escaping her lips as the sweetness overwhelmed her senses.
Now that I'm eating it again after all this time, it's pretty clear I've been missing out.
Hanukkah giggled at Umi's reaction.
We haven't changed our recipe since you left, so it's the same manju that you've always loved.
Umi smiled in response and finished the rest of her manju in silence. She had expected Hanukkah to pick up the conversation somewhere, but Hanukkah seemed content to watch her eat. Umi shifted from side to side, casting her eyes about the room. The awkwardness of their situation began to set in. She had to think of something that was innocuous enough to prevent the conversation from getting too heavy, yet open-ended enough to stave off the impending stench of silence.
Are you managing the shop full-time? No.
Hanukkah waved her hands to discard the notion.
I still have a long way to go. Mom isn't confident yet that I can do everything on my own. Besides, she's not that old yet. That's not what I meant.
Umi chuckled.
You certainly look the part is all.
It was true, although Umi couldn't tell exactly why this was so. Perhaps it was a combination of the flour that still coated Hanukkah's hands and the well-worn apron that she donned over her casual clothes. But it was this very image that impressed herself upon Umi's mind when she had first seen Hanukkah from the entranceway. She wasn't sure how to feel about that. She certainly meant it as a compliment, but... Hanukkah looked away, smiling wryly.
You think so? I do. Maybe I really am cut out for it then.
Hanukkah giggled and rubbed the back of her neck. Umi recognized the self-conscious and fidgeting. Is this what you've been doing the last 2 years? Are you still unsure of it? She didn't dare voice these thoughts aloud. It wouldn't look very good for her to speculate about Hanukkah's life choices just minutes into their reunion. Scrappy, hello?
Is it Scrappy's line?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Start, everyone. Good job. Great recording.
Great day.
Oh, fuck. The other chat.
Oh wait, what's going on?
My internet cut out for some reason, my apologies.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
Let's see. I'm sure you didn't visit to hear me talk about the shop. How's college? I bet you're killing it over there.
Hanukkah picked the mochi off the pile and leaned in excitedly. Umi leaned back slightly, already feeling the sting of inevitable disappointment.
Why does everyone assume that? Because you're smart. Why else? Even if that were true, it wouldn't be enough. What do you mean?
Umi bit her lip, debating how to explain her academic predicament.
Would you be disappointed if I told you that I'm not having the easiest time? Really?
Hanukkah all but shouted, causing Umi to flinch.
Why? Are you super busy? Do you have a ton of responsibilities? Does sitting in my room all day count as a responsibility?
Umi bit back the sarcastic response. Hanukkah didn't know the current state of her mental health, after all.
I had a part-time job for a while, but other than that, I've just been focused on school. Even someone as smart as you is having Even someone as smart as you is having trouble with college.
Hanuka muttered under her breath, but loud enough for Umi to hear.
Good thing I didn't go. I mean, it's not just a matter of intelligence.
Hanuka scratched her head.
But you have the... Hi, I'm Hanuka Kosaka, and this is my school. But you have the perfect combination of brains and discipline. That would have been true 2 years ago.
Umi tried to take an interest in the manju that she had just picked up, but she couldn't pretend that Hanuka's assessment wasn't a painful reminder of her current state.
Do you really think that? I grew up seeing it, so yeah.
Hanuka answered breezily.
Unless...
She didn't continue. Umi was forced to look up, and almost regretted it when she saw Hanuka staring, her head cocked slightly at Umi.
Unless what?
Umi finally asked.
Umi-chan, are you okay? You're asking that out of nowhere.
Shamefully, Umi noted that this was the fourth time that the question had been asked of her in some form.
Am I really that transparent?
Hanuka didn't seem fazed. By Umi's growing embarrassment. Umi sighed. She mulled over her.
Hon, it completely cut off after you said Hanuka didn't seem phased or something.
Alright. Alright, let's do this again. Hanuka didn't seem fazed by Umi's growing embarrassment.
Not really. You keep looking away when you have to answer a question about school.
Umi sighed.
That's as good of a tell as any.
She mulled over how to word her predicament. Clearly, Hanuka's mental image of Umi was still the star student that she was pre-college.
I certainly wish I still got straight A's. Why don't you? It's not like you've gotten dumber, right? No, probably not.
Umi added, which got a wry smile on Hanuka.
I don't have the motivation for it.
Hanuka took a bite out of her mochi. She chewed it slowly, took her eyes on Umi all the while.
But you're doing what you love, right? Yes.
Umi paused.
I don't know.
She corrected herself, shaking her head.
I'd rather do this than study a science or go back home to run my family's business, but... But what? I don't know.
She sighed.
Sometimes I wish I was in high school again.
She looked up to see Hanuka silently regarding her with wide eyes. Umi looked away and picked up another manju off the pile.
Wow.
She muttered, forcing out an awkward laugh.
I didn't mean for this to get so heavy. Sorry.
Hanuka's usual cheerful expression returned. To Umi, it was as if she was coming out of a trance.
Why are you apologizing? I know I'm unreliable, but I'm always here for you if you need it. I'm the unreliable one. Thank you, Hanuka.
Umi said quietly, trying not to let her shame show.
I don't deserve that.
She stood up abruptly, as her face was starting to redden.
Do you mind if I use your bathroom? You don't have to ask. Oh gosh.
Hanuka giggled.
You remember where it is, right? Yeah, thanks.
Umi hurried out the door and towards the stairs. She was still struggling to accept what Hanuka had just said. It seemed so easy for her to make that promise. As she started up the stairs, she was so preoccupied with her thoughts that she didn't notice the other person making her way down until they bumped into each other. Umi jerked her head up and realized who had she run into.
Oh!
Umi shrunk back and put up her hands in apology.
I didn't see you there, Yukiho. Yukiho?
The young girl didn't respond right away. If she was surprised at running into Umi, she certainly didn't show it. Instead, she put one hand on her hip, never breaking eye contact. Her unflinching stare caused Umi to bite her lip in apprehension. Finally, Yukiko said,
What are you doing here?
her voice was cold. Inwardly, Umi felt like the right choice in the situation was to leave as soon as possible. Because Yukiko's body language and tone were anything but friendly. However, that glare kept her rooted in place.
I came to visit Honoka.
She responded truthfully.
Why? Kotori said it might be a good idea. You weren't satisfied with how much damage you did the first time you left. Are you back for more?
Yukiko snarled. She stepped forward, and when Umi tried to step back, she found herself pinned against the wall. Though Umi had a definite size advantage, Yukiko's indignance was out in full force, and it was a force to be reckoned.
Of course not!
Umi's defense came out too feebly to be convincing. She was painfully aware of the wall pressing harshly against her back.
We're just catching up.
Yukiko didn't seem convinced. She arched an eyebrow and didn't back down from her threatening position.
I don't believe you.
She said flatly. Umi grimaced and tried to look away.
I suppose there isn't much I can do to excuse me. Once more from the top. I suppose there isn't much I can do to convince you. Oni-chan's really forgiven you already? How do you pronounce that? One-chan? Big sister's really forgiven you already?
Yukiko voiced the question more to herself than to Umi, judging from the way she broke her intense stare to glance towards the living room downstairs.
I don't know about that.
Yukiko's fierce glare returned, but the fear that she instilled into Umi was somewhat mitigated as she stepped away from her a moment.
But she's just talking to you like nothing's wrong. It seems so.
Yukiko appeared to relax, and Umi saw her best chance to explain herself.
Yukiko, I really don't have any malicious intentions.
Unfortunately, Umi didn't see Yukiko's jaw tighten until it was too late.
Oh, and I bet you're gonna say that you didn't have any malicious intentions the first time you left either.
Once again, she advanced on Umi, who found herself trapped against the wall for a second time.
Listen up, Umi-senpai.
Yukiko seemed to spit the honorific out.
My sister's heart isn't something you can play with, then throw away when you feel like it. Let me try that again. My sister's heart isn't something you can play with, then throw away when you feel like it. She might have forgiven you, but that doesn't mean I have.
Yukiko stepped back and, with a final huff, disappeared downstairs. Umi was left to clutch at her heart and let out an exhaustive sigh. Though she was still reeling from what had just happened, she had to admit, Yukiko was right. Getting back to where she used to be with Honoka wasn't going to be this easy.
Yuki passed by. She said she was going out.
Honoka said as Umi returned to her seat at the table.
Did you run into her? Yeah, I did.
Umi looked away.
Did she say anything to you?
She looked back up into Honoka's earnest eyes.
She didn't hear.
She decided.
Nothing important.
Honoka nodded, and Umi breathed a soft sigh of relief, which took precedence over the brief twinge of guilt she felt for lying.
She didn't know you were coming, so she must have been pretty surprised. It seems so.
Umi fiddled with the empty teacup in front of her, eager to change the topic.
She's a third year now, right? Yeah, it's crazy. It seems like she'll never stop complaining about. Ugh, it seems like she'll never stop complaining about entrance exams and tests and all that stuff.
Hanukkah sighed heavily, as if she were the one who was studying rigorously, and not her younger sister.
I'm glad I never had to go through all of that.
Umi briefly recalled her own entrance exams.
It was rather stressful.
A frown overtook her face as she struggled to form a distinct picture of that time. Hanukkah giggled.
You and Kotori-chan were studying so much during that time, and I thought that our third year was. Ugh, and I thought that our third year was. Ugh, and I thought that our third year was for slacking off. I don't think you reserved slacking off just for our third year.
Umi fixed Hanukkah with an expectant look. The other girl expertly avoided her gaze, although she still seemed to shiver under its intensity.
Yeah, I don't think school is really for me.
Hanukkah admitted.
I don't know if I would have made it. I don't know if I would have made it true. I don't know if I would have made it through without you two. That's why we were there. Yeah, that's why we were there, I suppose.
Umi chuckled dryly. She didn't have to rack her brain to remember the countless occasions on which Hanukkah asked to copy her home, or the scoldings that almost always followed.
Then I take it you prefer working to being in school.
She was mildly surprised when Hanukkah shrugged.
I definitely don't miss the homework or the cramming or the stress. But being surrounded with friends made it worth it, I think. It's harder to make friends with my customers. Really? I'd imagine that they love you.
Umi mused at Hanukkah's cheeriness in mind.
I mean, I don't have trouble talking to them. I've even memorized stuff about some of the regulars. You know there's a woman named Fumio-san? Did you know there's a woman named Fumio-san who's lived down the street from us since before we were born? She comes in twice a... Pardon me. She comes in twice a week and always buys ohagi on Tuesday and mochi on Friday. No, I had no idea. Yeah, I ask her about her husband and kids pretty often. She always says something like, "I'll take them here one day," when they're not all so busy.
She recited a remarkably bad old woman impression.
Nailed it. I lost track of how long she's been saying that.
Umi smiled at the image.
Sounds like you're not having such a hard time. Well, yeah, but chatting with them and actually making friends with them are two different things. I only see my customers for like an hour a week.
Hanukkah glanced towards the door, falling silent for a moment. Umi wondered momentarily whether she needed to return to her station at the front of the shop, but this thought was refuted as Hanukkah turned back to her.
Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to work in a different environment.
She continued.
Then I wouldn't have to interact with people like that. But you're good at it.
Umi pointed out.
Yeah, I guess.
Hanukkah popped her chin up with a hand, absently drawing circles in the desk with the other.
I might as well be, since I'm going to be doing this for a while.
Umi tried to read Hanukkah's expression, but she couldn't pick up any resignation or unhappiness in it. As she watched her trace the same circle with her hand, she realized that Hanukkah seemed restless. Perhaps talking about the shop elicited the same reaction that Umi had when talking about school.
Do you like working here?
She tried. Hanukkah's eyes flickered to her, and her hand stopped in its tracks.
I mean, if I said no, then it wouldn't look very good for me. I don't have anything else I can do.
Umi was about to clarify whether this was a yes or a no, but at that moment the door to the living room slid open. An older woman who resembled Hanukkah looked inside.
Hanukkah, there you are.
She said.
You can't take breaks without telling me. There are customers at the counter waiting for you. Crap!
Honoka stood quickly, causing the plate of sweets on the table to rattle.
Sorry, sorry, Mom. I didn't know Umi-chan was coming. Ah.
Honoka's mother saw Umi for the first time and smiled warmly.
Umi, Umi, do you mind if I borrow Hanukkah for a bit? She still has her job to do.
Umi smiled sheepishly in response.
Not at all. I don't want to distract her.
In the doorway, Honoka quickly tied the back of her apron up before whipping around to face Umi.
Sorry, Umi-chan.
She clasped her hands together apologetically.
Looks like I have to kick you out, unless you want to stay until closing. It's fine.
Umi couldn't imagine what she would do during that time. Then she remembered there was also a possibility of her running into Yukiho again, and she shook her head firmly.
Alright, I'll see you tomorrow.
With that, Honoka quickly disappeared down the hallway. Her mother, who had watched their exchange, remained in the doorway. She regarded Umi with a curious look, which made Umi shift uncomfortably.
It's been a while since you last visited, hasn't it?
The older woman asked.
Yeah, I've been busy with school.
Umi replied. A well-rehearsed response was much easier for her to say than the whole truth.
Well, it was nice of you... excuse me. Well, it was nice of you to drop by despite that. Honoka's still quite the handful, so I hope that didn't shock you.
She chuckled.
Not at all.
Umi returned the laugh.
Being away for so long really made me miss her. She misses you too. She talks about you a lot, as if you still live just down the street. Really?
In line with what Maki had said a few days ago about how neither Honoka nor Kotori ever talked about her to their mutual friends, this was something of a revelation.
That's right. Can you spare the time to come by more often? I think Honoka would appreciate it.
She winked. Umi didn't know how to return that, but she didn't have to. Honoka's mother took a step out of the doorway, pointing towards the front of the shop.
Oh goodness, now I'm the one chatting in the back while customers are waiting for me.
She shook her head lightly.
You can see yourself out, right?
Umi nodded, and Honoka's mother left, calling for her daughter. Umi breathed a long sigh of relief. It was nice not to have Honoka's entire family against her, at least. She pondered the chances of Honoka's mother being aware of their situation, and she stood up to leave. But she couldn't tell based on the one interaction alone. Umi flopped onto her bed with an unceremonious sigh. Perhaps she really had been overthinking everything, as Kotori had suggested. Her reunion with Honoka had proceeded without any major hitches. Sure, there were some moments of awkwardness, and perhaps they skirted around each other a little more than she would have liked, but she certainly preferred that to any of the outcomes that she had conjured in her head. She checked her phone for the first time since leaving her house that morning and was greeted by a message from Maki.
Hey, mind if I come over for a bit?
Oh, Nico. Wait, you voice Maki now, Tanner? Okay.
Didn't I last time?
Nico, you were Nico.
I know, but I thought I was also Maki. I guess I was wrong.
No, I think Umi's more or less been Maki in all of them, but you two can deliberate on that.
It's no. Go ahead.
Hey, mind if I come over for a bit? I recorded a bit of piano and vocals for the song. I wanted to run it by you.
Please do. I can't wait to hear it.
Maki didn't live too close to her, so Umi decided to start unpacking while she waited. She still had clothes stuffed into her suitcase when the doorbell rang about 20 minutes later.
Coming.
She called, hurrying to the front of the house. She slid open the front door. Maki was waiting there, as she expected, in jeans and a striped purple sweater. You look tired, Maki said bluntly. Umi glared at her, but she still brushed her thumb under her eyes, self-consciously.
It's nice to see you too, Maki.
I was just surprised. Maki eased herself out of her flats and dropped in neatly by the door. We're on break, so why wouldn't you catch up on your sleep?
I've been I've been sleeping pretty well, but I just came back from visiting Honoka.
Oh, right. How was it?
It went surprisingly well. Do you want to go? Do you want to go to my room or the living room?
Maki glanced to her right. Another brief hallway led to another sliding door. Past the open door was a wide, mostly empty room with rubber mats serving as the floor. Do I have to go through the dojo?
Not if we go to my room.
Umi chuckled lightly upon seeing Maki's adverse reaction. She turned and led Maki down the other hall.
I'm really excited to hear what you've created so far.
It's not much, really. Maki stepped into Umi's room and looked around. She only had two places to sit, the desk chair or the bed, and she picked the latter. As she produced an MP3 player from her pocket and unraveled her earbuds, Umi sat next to her. So far, I've only written the piano riff that'll run over the verses and some of the guitar accompaniment. I've recorded myself singing the first verse to see how the vocal melody sounds against the piano and guitar, but you'll still be singing the final version, of course. She offered Umi both earbuds. Umi took one in each hand and tilted her head to affix one to each ear. Once she did, Maki handed her the MP3 player, and a simple press of the play button started the song. As she expected, piano caught her attention first. Just like she had outlined to Maki on the guitar, the main riff alternated between two chords, and that much was obvious even in this updated version. But that was where the similarities ended. Umi had designated each chord to be played once per measurement, or once for every 3 counts. With that thought in mind, Maki allowed the left hand to play each chord once, while the right hand, the new emphasis of this reworked riff, played a brief yet complex run that still fell within that chord's parameters. Umi almost couldn't believe her ears. She looked at Maki, who simply offered her a knowing smile in return. Then, the vocals entered, mixed into the background, but still very apparent. It was Maki's voice, Umi's lyrics, emphatic and pleading.
Oh, okay. I guess this is a musical episode also. Stay here, stay in the moment, where the blooming of spring never ends. Let's go down by the willow tree, roll with the hills till we make our ascent.
It's the title!
Yep.
Umi immediately noticed the interplay between the lyrics and the piano riff. The breaks in the singing coincided with the timing of the right-hand runs, and both melodies were very pleasant to her ear.
Maki.
She began, taking one earbud to express her excitement.
This is amazing.
Wait. Maki pointed at the MP3 screen. There's more. Umi looked down to confirm this, then quickly strained to listen. The first verse was playing again, but this time with an addition. A clean electric guitar played a seemingly haphazard sequence of notes alongside the other 2 tracks. It wasn't significant enough to designate a solo, but it was certainly a far cry from the simple chords that Umi had used the guitar for. The sample ended after the second rendition of the first verse.
This is much more than I was expecting.
Umi said, unable to contain her smile. I was trying to make it as jazzy as possible. Maki took the MP3 and wrapped it up. The piano was obviously pretty jazzy, but I also wanted the guitar to sound more like a jazz guitar instead of, say, a rock or pop guitar. I thought writing a part that played one note at a time was better better stylistic choice than the full, blocky chords. Umi nodded, wondering if it would be worthwhile to take note of this glimpse into Maki's songwriting process. She decided against it. Maki had years of musical training and playing on her after all.
It sounds easy when you put it like that, but I can't fathom how that translates. Excuse me. It sounds easy when you put it like that, but I can't fathom how that translates into these complex and impressive riffs. Not only that, but each part contributes to such a beautiful overall sound.
Maki merely shrugged. I was just going off of the chords you gave me.
But it sounds nothing like my initial idea.
That's just because I reworked it so much. Those ideas probably would have never come about if you hadn't given me that specific outline.
Either way, I'm glad it's you for Pete's sake. Either way, I'm glad it's you who's composing it.
Umi nodded firmly.
It's obviously in the right hands.
Maki fidgeted, but didn't make an attempt to hide her blush. I'm just doing what I think sounds right. Oh, she said, sitting up a little straighter. That reminds me, I have more good news.
About the song?
Maki nodded. Remember my old piano teacher who was in a band? He replied to my email. His band agreed to record the backing track for a small price.
Really? That's great news!
Umi
How
clasped
much
her
will it-
hands together. Umi clasped her hands together excitedly.
Sorry. How much will it cost? I'll help pay for it.
Are you sure? It's not that expensive, but...
Of course! It's my song too.
Maki smiled. Thanks. I sent him this sample, and he said that they'd love to do a jazz song.
So they have experience playing in that style.
Umi thought back to the conversation on the train, and Maki's uncertainty regarding just that. Yeah, they're not a jazz band, but after I told him what my plan for the rest of the arrangement is, he said that it's nothing that they can't do. Umi breathed a sigh of relief.
I'm very glad to hear it. I was starting to give serious thought to advertising and promoting on our own.
Me too. Now all that's left for me is to write the parts for the rest of the instruments and then receive the recording.
Have you started writing those yet?
Maki shook her head. I'll probably do the rhythm section first. Drums, then bass. Then I'll save the trumpet for last.
Trumpet? You're really going to put a trumpet in the song?
Umi asked excitedly. She recalled the irreplaceable presence of the trumpet in many of the jazz standards that she had heard over the past few weeks. I have a couple of ideas for it. Maki seemed to share Umi's excitement, if her own smile was any indicator. Someone in the band plays trumpet too, so I should take advantage of it.
To think that this is just a few parts of it.
Umi glanced at the MP3 that Maki still held.
I can't wait to see the final result.
You said you visit Hanukkah today, right?
I did. Why?
Did you tell her about this? Maki held up the MP3.
Ah!
Umi lightly slapped herself on the forehead.
I totally forgot.
Maki raised an eyebrow, and Umi swore she saw a tiny smirk on her face to accompany it. It must have been a pretty engaging visit if you forgot to tell her. Umi frowned.
I suppose it was, but why do you say it like that?
Am I wrong? Anyway, now you can show her the sample when you really do tell her.
I could.
Umi considered the idea for a second, but she ended up waving it away.
No. I think I'd rather show her when the song's complete.
Maki tucked the MP3 back into her pocket. Yeah, that might be a better idea. She stood up suddenly, stretching her arms out above her head. I should probably get going. I told my mom I'd help make her dinner.
You can cook?
Umi asked, surprised. Maki shot her a glare. Why do you sound so shocked? I'm trying to learn, so I don't end up eating noodles or making you cook for me every day.
The pleasure's all mine, but it's good to learn.
Umi laughed. She stood up as well to see Maki out. I'll keep you updated. The way it's going, will definitely be done before Christmas break is over, Maki said once they had reached the front door. She slid it open, giving Umi a brief wave as her way of saying goodbye.
I'm looking forward to it.
Umi returned the gesture with a smile. After a pleasant but uneventful dinner with her parents, Umi returned to her room. As she lay in bed, scrolling absently through her smartphone, her thoughts inevitably drifted to the day's events, and her time spent with Hanukkah. Past the initial awkwardness, they had been able to talk quite easily with each other. Though their conversations turned heavy more quickly than she would have liked, the fact remained that Hanukkah still seemed to genuinely care for her. She felt like they were friends again, for the first time in a while. Of course, there was still Yukio's warning to bear in mind. Though Umi had been genuine in her claim that she was only seeking to repair and renew her friendship with Hanukkah, this apparently didn't change the fact that she was still on thin ice with the younger Kosaka sibling. Although she didn't enjoy being on the receiving end of such apparent mistrust, she also couldn't blame Yukio for harboring those feelings. She wondered if Hanukkah knew about the running in the hallway. It didn't really help her unease towards the situation.
I suppose there isn't much I can do about her.
Umi thought.
I'll just keep on doing what I'm doing, and hopefully that will be enough to convince her.
As a result of her simultaneous scrolling and thinking, Umi found herself staring at her phone's home screen. Her thumb lingered over her messaging app. More specifically, the messaging app that was home to the official Muse group chat. She hesitated for all a second before realizing that she had no longer had a reason to distance herself from it. With her successful visit with Hanukkah, she had now been greeted with a warm reception from all the girls. With this in mind, she opened the app to a flurry of messages. Her phone froze as it struggled to process all the unread messages since she had last opened the app. And Umi shifted impatiently while the little circle in the middle of her screen refused to disappear. After what couldn't have been more than a minute, the newest messages loaded.
Yo, so are we doing anything for Christmas Eve / Christmas?
Sleepover and Christmas. Oh gosh, hold on. Sleepover and Christmas party at Nico Cheese?
Anyone have any real ideas?
Weren't we just going into town to see the Christmas lights? Says Ellie.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's fine. You better come. I can see you reading our messages.
What?
Instinctually, Umi clicked the home button and exited out the app.
Are read receipts on by default?
She knew that Nico didn't mean to embarrass her, but being targeted like that only increased her aversion to replying. Reminding herself that she had promised to spend more time with the girls, she opened the app again and typed in her reply.
Yes, I'll be there. What time are we meeting up?
I'm still working after Christmas Eve, so I'm not free until after 7.
Okay, I can do that. Yay, Umi-chan's coming. Hey! Alright, let me try Bryn. Ugh. Yeah!
Good job.
The warm responses brought a small smile to Umi's face. As she
What does
glanced
that
at the
matter?
time,
I was saying shit, I was wondering if I was gonna be in this episode.
Alright, thanks. Sorry, Nova, you can resume.
Alright. The warm responses brought a small smile to Umi's face. She glanced at the time and was shocked to see that it was almost midnight.
When did it get so late?
She decided to retire for the night. Umi sat up and reached for the lamp on her nightstand, but before she could turn it off, a gentle rattling at her window caught her attention. She turned to see the cause and almost screamed when she saw someone standing outside of her room. Upon catching her attention, the figure waved at her as if it was completely normal to stand outside her window at this hour. It took Umi a moment to realize that this person outside was actually a very familiar intruder.
Honoka!
She shouted, flustered.
What are you doing? In a very non-Umi voice. What are you doing?
She stormed to the window and threw it open, ignoring the harsh chill that invaded her room as a result.
Is it so hard to use the front door?
Honoka didn't appear fazed by Umi's indignance. She glanced around furtively, then leaned in and hissed.
Shh! I don't think your parents would want you out of the house right now. Out of the house? You don't want to go somewhere, do you?
She looked Honoka up and down with a skeptic eye. The other girl still wore her pajama pants under a glaringly mismatched sweater.
I do!
Honoka clenched her hands into fists and nodded convincingly.
You're asking me to sneak out.
Umi asked. Once again, Honoka gave her a firm nod of response.
It'd be just like old times. It can't wait until tomorrow.
Umi glanced towards her alarm clock, which confirmed that it was even closer to midnight.
And my parents might not be asleep yet. It's important to me, you know?
Honoka's tone gave her pause. She'd heard Honoka say things like this before, but this time was different. Gone was the thoughtless impulse, the disdain for consequence that Umi had attributed many of Honoka's past actions to. In his place was a disquieting solemnness, and as Umi looked into Honoka's earnest eyes, she realized that this request was something more akin to a plea. Or, if she were to take up the idea one step further, a cry for help. She cleared her throat.
Where do you want to go?
Honoka brightened immediately.
To the school! Ugh.
The night was surprisingly cloudless and clear. On top of that, Tokyo had yet to experience its first snowfall of the year, and as such, even the night still sported above freezing temperatures. This didn't mean that Umi wasn't still cold in her hoodie, pajama pants, and sock and slipper combination, but as she followed Honoka along the road route to the school, she was grateful for the comparatively decent weather.
Remind me again why we're going to the school at night. Why we're going to the school at night.
Umi took in the empty streets and muted streetlights around them. They were, indeed, alone on the street. Honoka reached the long stairway first and bounded up them two at a time.
I want to show you something.
She called behind her.
That doesn't tell me much.
Umi muttered, but Honoka was too far ahead to hear her. Sighing, she started up the stairs at a slower pace. Honoka waited for her at the top, and they only had to cross the street to enter the school grounds. To her surprise, Honoka crossed the street and walked through the open gates of a school without so much as a glance around her. Umi didn't want to be left alone on the street, so she had no choice but to jog after her friend. She couldn't believe her eyes as Honoka casually walked into the main entrance.
Is there no security guard watching the school at night?
She finally caught up to Honoka in the first floor hallway, since the other girl had since slowed to a walk.
Honoka, I really don't think this is a good idea.
Umi had to deliver her scolding in a low, harsh whisper, because the taps of their slippers against the tile echoed throughout the dark hallway. This disrupted the silence of the school at night, a silence that Umi was ashamed to break.
What if we get caught? Don't worry, I've never been caught.
Honoka reassured her in a voice that was far too loud for her liking.
The security guard is always out cold when I visit at night. He must be pretty tired all the time.
She mused as they approached the stairwell.
You don't know when he'll wake up.
Umi pointed out.
It's fine. We're almost there anyway.
As expected, her worries fell on deaf ears. Honoka bounded up the stairs without hesitation, soon rounding the corner and disappearing from view. Umi only had time to open her mouth, an exclamation of surprise on the tip of her tongue. She heard the tapping of Honoka's footsteps ascending the stairs, which gradually grew more distant. After a moment, the creak of a door opening reached Umi's ears, and the footsteps ceased. She wanted to chastise Honoka for leaving her alone in the dark stairwell, but she swallowed her fears and quietly climbed the last few steps to the door, which the other girl had left ajar. Stepping out onto the roof, she closed the door behind her for no particular reason and looked around. Honoka stood on the other side of the rooftop, the outline of her silhouette cast in a warm, multicolored glow. Past the edge of the roof, Umi could see the city lights, both near and far, that were responsible for this outline. If she listened, she could still hear the nighttime rush of cars, trains, and people alike, coalescing into a faint hum below them.
Have you ever Have you ever been up to the rooftop at night?
Honoka asked, her back still turned to Umi.
We aren't supposed to, so no. How often do you come up here?
As she joined Honoka at the edge of a roof, Umi kept her eyes focused on her friend.
Just whenever I feel like it. I don't really keep track. What's the benefit? I come up here to think.
The seriousness of her answer surprised Umi into silence, and so she decided to allow Honoka a moment to do just that. She tried to appreciate the view of the cityscape that the rooftop offered. While her college was also situated in a decently sized city, it was impossible to leave Tokyo and not miss the sprawling skyline, its constant hum of activity, its bright lights, and brighter people. She allowed a wistful smile to cross her face before she realized that Honoka probably didn't bring her to the school just to enjoy her quiet company. If the earnestness of her quest earlier was any indicator, there was something Honoka wanted to get off her chest here. Umi swallowed hard.
What do you think about?
She asked, breaking their prescient silence. Honoka leaned into the fence, almost too far out forward for Umi's liking.
The old days, mostly.
Honoka said quietly. It was almost lost to a distant blaring of her train's horn, but Umi heard it clearly enough.
The old days.
Those three vague, generic words carried a certain reverence with them. Their implications were quite heavy, after all. Long days practiced together, compositions, choreography, heated discussion, laughter, and tears. The time of their lives. And yet, Umi wasn't too fond of using that phrase. Most obviously, the old days weren't all that long ago. They were still young, no more than a few years out of high school. Didn't they still have the rest of their lives ahead of them? Umi stirred herself from her thoughts to realize that a silence had stretched out between them. To her right, Honoka grasped the fence with both hands, swaying back and forth while the fence rattled gently. She looked out towards the city, but as Umi looked into her eyes, she felt that Honoka's gaze was elsewhere, more accurately in the past. If Umi's own imagination were more active, she would be able to turn around in this very moment and see what Honoka was seeing. A crisp autumn afternoon on the rooftop, 9 girls sat or stood at various places, each in different stages of their warm-up. A few of them stretched, a few others jogged in place. Umi herself would be discussing their most recent song's choreography with Ellie, before Honoka pulled on her arm and dragged her away to show her a beetle that had made its home on the rooftop. Umi couldn't see any of this, but as she observed Honoka's distant gaze, she knew that this was the scene that the other girl clearly saw. In Honoka's mind, they were second years again. Perhaps they would be second years forever.
Umi-chan.
Honoka's voice was just as
Yes? Do you want to inherit your family's dojo?
Umi glanced sharply at Honoka upon hearing the question, but the other girl's eyes were still fixated on the past.
That's a rather loaded question. Excuse me. That's a rather loaded question. Yeah, sorry.
The apologies sounded tacked on and not all that sincere. Umi sighed, figured that Honoka still waited an answer.
I want to because there's no one else to do it. That's enough for you?
She had a feeling that she knew where Honoka was going with this.
A more selfish part of me wants to pursue a different career path. Like writing.
The wind picked up. Umi was unpleasantly reminded that her oversized hoodie still wasn't enough to shield her from the cold.
Yes, Mother tells me that I can do that while running the dojo, but I'm not so sure. Ah.
Honoka seemed to realize how inadequate of a response that was, because an awkward chuckle immediately followed.
Sorry for asking such a weird question. I just wanted to know if I wasn't alone in thinking stuff like that.
Umi flushed with embarrassment as her intended compliment earlier that day about how Honoka in her work outfit was fitting returned to the forefront of her mind. There was no doubt that Honoka hadn't taken too kindly to that descriptor.
She was just pretending to accept it.
Umi thought, burning with shame.
Does that mean you don't want to run the shop?
She asked.
Well...
Honoka rocked gently against the fence as she contemplated her answer.
I don't know. It's a long story. Can I start from the beginning?
Umi didn't know exactly what the beginning meant, but she figured she would find out soon enough.
Go ahead.
Honoka took a deep breath. When she spoke, it was uncharacteristically soft, but Umi didn't have the strength to hear her.
I think the only thing I've wanted out of my life is to have fun. You know that. Even if it was at the expense of my family, or my teachers, or you and Kotori-chan. I thought that was the point of being young. The hard stuff could come later.
While Umi waited for her to continue, Honoka let out a long sigh. She turned around and pressed her back against the fence, leaning heavily into it. It emitted a concerning creak, but Umi was too preoccupied with Honoka's reminiscing to express worry. Honoka looked at her briefly, then continued.
I knew that I'd end up taking over the shop. Yukiho's dreams are too big for that place, and she's pretty smart on top of that. Compared to her, I didn't try nearly as hard in school. It's really easy to see the difference between the two of us. That's why I never had a problem with my plan. I don't need much math or literature or whatever for it, and it's better than sitting through chemistry class or doing something else that I'm not good at. Then Muse happened, and it was nothing like I would have ever dreamed of. When we were starting out, I didn't think too many people would notice us. But before I knew it, people were looking up to me. They cheered me on. They expected something from me. Can you believe it?
She laughed sadly.
Clumsy, stupid me. leading our little group to accomplish those unthinkable things. Sometimes I still have a hard time believing it. More importantly than that, Muse became something that was bigger than me or you or any of us. There were days that we'd be practicing on the rooftop like usual, but I just wanted to stop everything and
Honoka paused, scoffing her slipper against the ground.
maybe I wanted to take a picture of that moment, but even that wouldn't do the trick. I wanted to remember what we did.
Honoka fell silent.
What do you mean?
Umi knew that Honoka meant more than simply keeping their accomplishments in her memories.
How do I say it?
Honoka took a moment to think. Umi saw the city reflected in her eyes.
More than saving the school or winning the Love Live, I wanted to remember our feelings, like the feeling that like the feeling that there won't ever be a group as unlikely as ours, or the feeling that we were in the prime of our youth, something cheesy like that.
Her smile was somewhat embarrassed.
Guys? Hello? Hmm. Oh, wait, I can't hear any of you guys right now. I'm gonna re-enter real quick. No route, what the hell? Okay, this works. What the hell?
Us.
It came back. Okay. I didn't even do anything, alright. I was gonna say, the last thing I heard was, something about, something being cheesy, or something like that.
Yeah, well, I heard it. I think did the recording Pick it up.
I
I
heard
don't
Sc-
think
I heard
it could
Scra-
be a burden.
I heard Scrappy say like something cheesy like that or whatever, and then everything just kind of died after that.
Mm.
Oh gosh. Alright, let's take it from the top. Her smile was somewhat embarrassed. I feel like I've used up a lifetime. For Pete's sake. I feel like I've used up a lifetime's worth of good luck. Performing songs and having such an effect on people was something else. But even just being with you all. It was more than I could have ever wanted. I never wanted it to end.
She shook her head, letting out a long sigh.
And just like that, it was over. I don't think I'll ever experience something like that again. I can't help but ask myself, is that it? Is that the highest we'll go?
She was now smiling wryly, and she shot Umi a look to match.
When it's all over, high school might be the best time of my life. It's like I'm the main character of some anime or something.
Ho 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 ho! Meta humor. What's up?
The thought made Umi vaguely uncomfortable.
I don't know how I feel about running the shop now. I wouldn't trade our time for. Excuse me. I wouldn't trade our time and muse for the world. But if this is all that I'm left with,
Umi drew her arms closer to herself, unable to find the right words to console Honoka.
does that mean you regret our decision to disband? That's the thing. We made that decision together, which I think was the right thing to do. It would have gotten so much harder if we'd stayed together. The official idol business has got to be harsher than what we're doing.
She laughed humorously. It made Umi shiver. She heard plenty of happy laughs and a fair share of sad laughs from Honoka too, but this empty laugh seemed so unnatural.
I feel so selfish when I think about the old days, but I can't help myself. I mean, what do I have to look forward to? Once I get a bit older, Mom will probably start bugging me about kids to pass a shop down to, and then I'll have to marry some guy.
Umi felt as though they were still rather young to be talking about marriage, but Honoka didn't seem to share her sentiment as she continued.
The rest of you girls aren't like me. You have so much to look forward to, careers to start, better friends to make, people to fall in love with. I can tell when we all hang out or when we're talking in the group chat. Let me try that again. I can tell when we all hang out or when we're talking in the group chat. Ellie-chan's talking about studying abroad. Nico-chan hasn't let her own dreams die. Maki-chan's going to be a doctor.
She counted each person off on her hand.
When I see what they're doing with their lives, I can't bring up the old days. Because they're moving on to better things.
One particular detail made Umi's eyes widen in concern.
You haven't talked to the others about any of this?
She asked disbelievingly. Honoka seemed to recognize the alarm in Umi's voice. She turned away and sheepishly rubbed the back of her neck.
Nope. They tell me that I'm stuck in the past.
She chuckled emptily again, then added,
They'd be right, but it wouldn't help much.
She looked at Umi's slightly open mouth, upon which she hurriedly corrected herself.
But I did talk to Kotori-chan about it. I even brought her up here. What did she say? She told me she'd be there if I need to talk about it. I believe her, but she has big plans too, and she's really talented at her own thing. I'd just be holding her back if I called her every time I wanted to complain about the same thing.
She shrugged. It pained Umi to see her say these things so nonchalantly.
I've really felt like I'm alone in this. Maybe I'm just putting off thinking about the future for too long, and it's finally caught up to me.
With that final thought, Honoka turned to face the sprawling city once more. She seemed content to let Umi digest her monologue, for which Umi was quite thankful. After all, what was she to say to that brutally honest wake-up call? Could she even help Honoka if her dissatisfaction was so deeply rooted in the past? She felt a guilty pang of relief when Honoka saved her from having to answer.
Ah, jeez!
The other girl shouted, piercing the heavy silence. Umi flinched visibly, but Honoka was in the midst of inhaling deeply, spreading her arms wide, and as such she didn't notice.
I didn't want to make you think I'm hopeless.
Umi was at a loss for how to respond. Her eye twitched helplessly. Honoka caught her eye and smiled wildly.
That's a lot to get off of my chest, don't you think? Saying all that stuff at once is really...
She circled her hands around one another to help her think of the most fitting word.
heavy.
She finished.
You could say that again.
Umi found her voice, though it was still unsteady.
Sorry!
Honoka giggled. Umi watched her laugh, which had returned in full force. It was no longer the empty shell that it was just minutes before.
I told you. Being up here at night makes me think about everything. Maybe it's the view.
She pushed herself off the fence. Tilting her face upward, she started to spin slowly, staring at the sky all the while.
Could you repeat that last part of the sentence?
Staring up at the sky all the while.
Thank you. I thought it would be the best place to tell you all this.
Umi considered her friend's assessment. Cliché as it was, Honoka did have a point. The home of the city was a fitting backdrop for vulnerable conversations of this nature, and it made Honoka's problem seem much more real, if not more pressing. A thought crossed Umi's mind. Would it now be as good a time as any to breach what happened between them before she left? She dismissed the idea almost immediately. Honoka hasn't even...
Honoka hasn't... Honoka hasn't even hinted at it so far. What makes you think she'd want to discuss it?
She asked herself.
It would just be a painful reminder of both of our mistakes.
In addition, Honoka seemed to have more than enough weighing her down already. Yet, as she watched Honoka turn and turn, still casting the warm glow of the city lights, she wondered if there would be a better opportunity than this. Honoka planted both of her feet on the ground, facing Umi.
I bet you've had enough of talking. I bet you've had enough of me talking for today. Is there anything you want to talk about? While we're up here?
Umi's breath hitched sharply. She stared with wide eyes at Honoka, who wore an expectant, innocent smile to accompany her question.
I can't ask her. Not if she smiles at me like that.
How Honoka could smile like she did, how she could laugh like she did, on the heels of such an unabashed confession about the state of her life was completely beyond Umi. Was it just an act? Then she remembered Maki's advice to her.
Well...
She began, looking up at the sky and hoping to see what Honoka saw.
It's been a while, but I'm writing a song. No! Since when? Since about a month ago.
Umi quickly replayed the past month's events in her head.
Maki's helping me compose it. Maki-chan's helping you?
Honoka frowned.
She always talks about how busy she is. You didn't force her, did you? Of course not!
Umi balked at the suggestion, but paused as the nature of requests to Maki a month prior came into focus.
I mean, it's true that I didn't have anyone else to ask. So she took pity on you. No.
Umi responded, perhaps too quickly.
She was skeptical at first, but she's having a good time writing it now. Well, if you two are writing a song together again, it's just like when we were in Muse.
Honoka smiled, a hint of nostalgia on her face.
Is that why you're doing it? I don't think so.
Though Honoka's reasoning had been mirrored by many of the other girls so far, Umi hadn't even considered that as the possible influence up until now. If it was an influence on this process, it was completely subconscious.
Put simply, I was inspired. I guess it wasn't too different from the old days, as you would say. What's it sound like?
Umi didn't have a sample on her, so she couldn't have shown Honoka even if she wanted to.
It's not complete yet. That's right.
Honoka put her finger to her chin, retreating into deep thought.
Then what's it called? Excuse me. Then what's it called? Titles are really important.
She declared, momentarily adopting a more wizened tone.
She does speak from experience, I suppose.
Umi thought with a chuckle. Umi moved to respond before she realized that she had yet to think of a proper title.
About that.
She said in a blatant attempt to stall for time. Honoka didn't press for an answer, instead allowing Umi time to think by nodding slightly. She found her answer more quickly than she expected. It was a line in the song which, to her, most succinctly captured the acute yearning found in the rest of the lyrics.
Till we make our ascent. That's what it's called. Till we make our ascent?
Honoka repeated, confused. Unsurprisingly, her English wasn't as proficient as Umi's, and she struggled to form foreign words.
Your writing major is showing, Umi-chan.
She flashed a teasing grin at Umi.
What's that supposed to mean?
Defensiveness crept into Umi's voice.
Nothing at all.
Honoka's hands flew up to either side of her face, a pacifying gesture.
It just sounds really romantic. What's it about? Romantic?
It was another facet of the song that Umi had seldom considered, perhaps purposefully so. She recalled yesterday's exchanges with Maki and Katori, and how both of them had insinuated the song was somehow related to the girl that stood in front of her now. Umi herself was still unsure just how true this was, so she opted for a safer answer.
It's about the... Excuse me. It's about the... It's about the desire to escape. From what?
Umi shrugged.
Our lives, I suppose.
She said simply.
Our lives.
Honoka let out a low whistle and broke into another grin.
So you're going through it too, huh? Through what?
That wasn't the response Umi had been expecting. To her frustration, Honoka didn't elaborate. Instead, she spun on her heel and began to walk backwards towards the door to the stairwell.
You'll show me when it's done, right? Of course.
Umi wanted to ask Honoka what she had meant, but that was quickly forgotten as she realized the implication of what she had just agreed to.
It's a promise.
She murmured, not loud enough for Honoka to hear. She shivered, realizing that Honoka must have been feeling the cold as well. She jammed her hands into her hoodie's front pocket and hurried to catch up. The walk back to Honoka's house was mostly silent. Umi was still attempting to process the weight of Honoka's words, the years of pent-up emotions, and as she watched Honoka walk a few paces ahead of her, she wondered how long Honoka had been keeping her dissatisfaction to herself. From what Honoka had told her, and from her own interactions with the rest of the family, almost no one knew to the extent of her longing for a time that was long gone. It was quite the dilemma.
No wonder she's so frustrated with frustrated with herself.
Umi thought. However, when he stopped in front of the shop and Honoka turned around, she was still smiling.
Thanks for... Excuse me. Nova, Tanner, you're handling Hanukkah next time. Thanks for listening to me talk and talk.
She said.
I didn't mind.
Honoka wasn't hiding the fact that she was staring. Umi looked down to the ground, rubbing her neck.
It was nice to see you again.
She looked up in anticipation for a response, but she didn't expect Honoka to dart forward and encircle her arms across Umi's back in a brief, yet firm embrace. She couldn't even react as Honoka pulled back. Her smile persisted.
What happened up there is between us, okay?
She clasped her hands behind her back and turned towards the front of the shop.
Hanukkah, wait!
Umi called out to her retreating figure.
Hmm?
Honoka didn't turn around.
You said you haven't told anyone about those things, except Kotori.
She couldn't see Honoka's expression, but she pressed on.
If that's true, then why did you tell... For Pete's sake. If that's true, then why did you tell me? I haven't been there for you.
Was her unspoken reasoning. Honoka twirled on one foot to face Umi again. The smile was still there, but her eyes had such an obvious sadness in them that made Umi's heart twinge. Honoka seemed to regard her for a moment with those sad eyes before responding.
All this time I thought that you disappeared on us because you were throwing yourself into your new life over there. But after I heard you talk about your problems with school and that new song of yours, I changed my mind. I wanted to see if my new idea was right. What new idea?
Honoka took a step closer.
I think we're the same. I can't let go of the old days.
Her expression was too serious for Umi's liking.
And neither can you. I can't?
Umi stepped back. She wanted to say that Honoka was wrong, but her own behavior in school, her loss of motivation, even her silent ability to sympathize with everything that Honoka had told her on the rooftop, indicated otherwise.
Maybe I shouldn't have put it like that.
Honoka said as she observed Yumi's reaction.
I wouldn't want you to end up like me.
She cracked an inappropriate smile.
Sorry, just forget I said anything then. You're hanging out with us tomorrow, right?
She stepped towards the door of the shop.
Yeah.
Umi stammered dumbly.
Great! I'll see you then.
Umi was left to stare at the closed door, her mouth half open but far from forming a coherent response. After it became clear that Honoka wasn't coming back out, she put a hand to her forehead and let out a soft groan for herself. If she were to assume the role of the victim here, Honoka had just dragged her to the roof, dumped almost 2 years' worth of emotional baggage on her, and left her to deal with it. But not before claiming that she and Umi had the same problem at the core. She curled her hand into a fist and tapped it repeatedly against her forehead.
Idiot. Ugh, gosh. Idiot. She wasn't doing all that to spite you. Aren't you supposed to be there for her?
Umi looked up at the clear sky and wondered if she was able to.
And end chapter.
Oh, okay. That didn't go on as long as I thought it was going to.
Actually read through the fic,
Hey, yo.
or at least this chapter. I guess this is the part where everyone provides their thoughts.
Yeah? What did you guys think?
A lot of baggage.
There's a lot to take in.
I didn't do shit in this episode. But no, I think the last half was definitely the best part. I probably would have been invested in it more if, again, I had watched the show.
Right, that's fair.
But from what I understood, it was well written. Cause, yeah. Yeah.
I like seeing Honeka's viewpoint of where things are now, because the whole Muse thing was definitely like a massive highlight of her life, so it's kind of interesting seeing her reflect on that and being like,
Yeah. Oh no, I like
Yeah.
that. I've always liked seeing characters being older and then looking back on what their lives were.
yeah,
it. And that was probably the most interesting part. Just having two scenes of two characters just having a heart to heart always gets me. No matter what you're writing, that shit always gets to me.
I can agree with that. What about you, Scrappy and Nova?
What was I gonna say? Yeah. Pardon me. I didn't narrate. My throat's still scorched. It was well written, and it was nice to see Honoka again because it's in universe. It's been a while, and even out of universe, it's been a while. um,
I would go more in depth, but A, I'm tired, and B, there are parts of this show I just don't know. So parts of it just didn't leave the impact I feel like it should have left, but that's purely because of where I'm coming from.
that's fair. Hanukkah has definitely become more introspective with the passage of time. Good for her, cause good for her. Even I have gained perspective after leaving high school, which was more than 6 years ago. Oh my gosh. I feel like her lampshading that she effectively peaked in high school is. I feel like that can resonate with more people, with a lot of people, whether they want to admit it or not. And I don't know. It feels like they leaned on the fourth wall a bit when they were mentioning the anime thing.
Yeah, that was a very wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Shy of breaking that.
Yeah.
Uh,
And also like naming the song, the title of the fanfic, which I mean,
yeah.
it's-
Oh, we got a title drop, baby. Oh, it said the thing.
Yes. What was I gonna say? I mean, this is. And as far as anime is concerned, you generally do peak in high school, but
pretty much.
Yeah, but no, I liked it what it was doing thematically, and I can imagine a lot of people connecting to it.
this would have hit me a lot harder if I had read it like shortly after going to college.
Oh, yeah. And honestly, that was probably the most relatable part because right now I'm having struggles with college. So Umi was incredibly relatable from that angle.
It's a lot easier to digest the chapter when you're not reading the majority of it. So, thank you, Nova, for your excellent narration. It was good and actually time efficient.
Yeah, you were really good.
Yeah, you did a really good
Why,
job
thank you.
narrating the episode.
Yep.
Why, thank you.
Yeah, Tanner, you're voicing Hanukkah next time because I can't.
That'll
feel-
actually give me something to do other than twiddle my thumbs and listen.
I feel like we should balance out the who voices which characters, because yeah, Tanner didn't get a lot of time to do that this time.
Even then, Nico wasn't doing anything particularly interesting in this one.
Yeah, I know she has a chapter where she has a decently sized role, but I don't remember how far that is. Like, it might be the next one or the one after that. But
I want to go deeper with analysis. I don't know why I'm incapable of it right now, other than the fact that I'm a fucking idiot.
Or you're still coming off of the hangover.
Oh yeah, because I was really drunk earlier. I don't even know how I got that drunk, because I don't know why it's specifically 2 cranberry vodkas that do it, because I can drink anything else and be fine. It's specifically those. Or at least the ones that I order at bars. I don't know. But I dropped... Yeah, I wound up dropping the entire glass in the middle of the restaurant. I was at Buffalo Wild Wings.
have you do you have anything to say, Nova?
It's kind of left me a little speechless initially,
Hmm.
because
Yeah, this
honest,
chapter is really heavy.
Yeah, like I remember reading this and like kind of taken aback a little bit because there's a lot to take in.
because I mean, because the thing is that it's not so much that I think that I peaked in high school as well, because I don't actually believe that, but it's still, but the longing for the past part, that it definitely hits somewhere for me, because
Everything was so much more simple in high school.
Hmm.
But once you get out of high school, you realize that the world is nowhere near as simple as high school makes it.
Yeah.
well, it's
Especially
not
when
really,
you... What?
well, it's not really so much that, because considering that the family I come from, and considering all the all the all the family and financial issues we've dealt with over the years, like I
Mm-hmm.
was already well aware, probably more so than any other teen should, but I was well aware that the world really wasn't
Uh-huh.
any simple. But even so, just knowing that, it, at least for at least for how I've changed since then. At least for
Hmm.
because I just remember. So I remember I really didn't care about having relationships beyond friendships. And so now that that time's gone, and now that I'm at where I am right now, it just really it hit it just struck a particular chord with me, because a part of me just a part of me sort of, well, not completely, but still sort of misses the time where I wasn't so there weren't times where I was so wrapped up in my emotions and how lonely I honestly do feel from the life I've had so far. I miss the times when I didn't have to deal with that, and I was just more so I was just more so a teen that was just, well, not but well, wasn't pretending to be woke or anything, but was at least well aware that of all the crap that's in the world, and how life just
Uh-huh.
really isn't too simple for a lot of people nowadays.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
not counting what's happening right now, like in general,
Uh-huh.
just how unsimple things are. And so,
I feel like after you move out of high school, um, you start to a lot of it just kind of comes crashing down on you because with high school, like you're busy doing so many different things.
Mhm.
So like when you get out of it, um, you have more time to just kind of reflect on life in general,
Oh,
and not it doesn't always come down in the best of ways, and it causes a lot of issues just mentally.
right now, what I'm suffering from, and I think ever since I left high school, is a sense of directionlessness in my life. I keep trying different things, and then either they don't work out or I just quit because there's something I don't like. I just keep
I can understand that.
I
I have that same issue, actually.
I feel I know what I want to do. You know, I want to be a voice actor, I want to be a writer. But beyond that, what am supposed to do to get there and what I'm doing in the meantime, I don't know. Do I want to go back to college? Do I not? That's what I'm suffering right now is directionlessness and really
Yeah.
not knowing what the hell I'm going through.
That's pretty much my
I know what
exact...
I'm going through, but I don't know what the hell to do about it.
Yeah, I'm having that same issue. Like, I just don't know what to do in my life, honestly.
Because I don't want to do nothing. I don't want to
Yeah.
be basement dwelling loser. I want to go and I want to do something, and I know what my dreams are. And I believe I have at least enough quote unquote talent to achieve them.
Hmm.
It is not as easy as that. Being good at something means nothing if you're not willing to take the steps you need to take to get there. And I
Yeah.
just, from that point, I don't know. I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah, I can relate to that
Uh,
a lot.
this turned into a really personal episode. But so if you've come here for that, good. If you haven't, I'm sorry.
Have you said your piece, Scrappy, yet?
Tanner, I'd like to not to scare you, but just to inform you that the feeling of directionlessness does not necessarily end after college graduation. Case in point, myself. It is. There will always be times in your life, no matter whether you're 5 or 75, where you just don't know what to do with yourself, and
Hmm.
seek wealth of opportunities is what I would say first and foremost. Try new things if you can afford to, because I realize that not everyone has as many opportunities. I realize not everyone has as many opportunities to seek opportunities as myself or one guy down the street. This is absolutely worthless advice, but Nova dropped.
I totally get it.
Yeah, it's important advice.
For a more goofy example, I thought my cringe phase ended after middle school. Your cringe phase never ends.
This is true.
Yeah, pretty much.
I didn't think I'd be revisiting my fan fiction, yet here we are in 2020. And there's the obligatory plug for my fan fiction in every episode where we aren't actually reading the fan fiction.
So if I can make a plug, read anything other than what I write.
So what you're saying is read what you write, then okay.
Fuck. I need to. But no, I had a great time. I have to go because I'm tired.
Yeah, I was gonna go.
Drunk.
I was gonna go after this as well. Any other closing thoughts, or are you done?
To those
well,
who go on, Nova.
I was just gonna say that it while the reason it's not the exact same as the rest of you, like it definitely did hit a particular chord with me because to sum it up, I had a lot more time to feel more lonely than I had in high school when even though I know what to do and I know what I want to do, like I've always known that ever since I became an adult.
Yeah.
The main problem is that I just don't want to do it alone.
I mean, hopefully us dicking around reading fan fiction gives you something. Though
Yeah,
I
it
totally
does.
get it.
And it's not to discredit all the fun we've had so far. It's just I want something even deeper than that. That's all.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. You need something to make your life feel fulfilling in your own way.
I need that too.
Yeah.
I would never like propose this as a substitute for deep, intimate human connection.
No, well, I mean, like,
You guys don't come here for that. You come here for stupid jokes.
well, I mean, this to be fair.
By the way, did not make. I made like 3 jokes in this episode. 2 of them may be funny. Nah, that's pushing it.
No, because this is one of the things I look forward to the most nowadays. So that has to count for something.
Yeah.
Yes, but we're in a pandemic, Harry. It's not
Well,
fair.
that's yeah,
many
that helps. There's not really much we can do at the moment, so just having something to look forward to is just nice.
When do you guys want to meet next?
Well, that would honestly depend on who's available when. Since we ostensibly go on a 1 to 2 week schedule, but we've been kind of belting them out weekly at this point, we can. It'll basically be either this next Monday or the Monday after that.
And maybe I'll actually be able to critique this beyond. It was good as a bugalo.
Yeah. I didn't realize. Yeah, I need to talk quietly. My mother's probably sleeping and probably hates me for doing this stuff at 11 o'clock. Sorry, mommy. What was I gonna say? Yeah, I didn't realize until the chapter ended that I basically did every character role except Nico. My apologies, Tanner.
It's cool. We should, but next time, I'm just mad I couldn't provide much insight, critical insight, besides the. Well, I provided that I related to it, so.
Mm.
I read most of the character roles and I still couldn't give much actual critique, so it's fine.
I mean, yeah, it's fine.
I'll do more later. I want to sound like a smart man. I watch video essays.
Reading this whole story has been a video essay.
This, yeah. But what's the overall point? No, you gotta. If you're doing a video essay, you gotta have it start out with footage of a movie and then pause, and of course, like a retro '80s ass aesthetic. Pause midway through.
Oh my
Did you
god.
notice something about this scene? Let me tell you something about this scene.
Oh gosh.
It's like how in English, like they constantly they constantly pause the movie every like two seconds. Like, what's going on here? What's this mean? It's like, I saw like 5 seconds. Calm down.
What am I supposed to glean from that?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, you're giving. See, I wanted to get away from school, but this story and all of this is just washing the memories back on me.
Yeah.
He's wearing a white shirt. What does this mean? It means that he put on a fucking white shirt. I don't know. I
Those are
get that
nice.
you want me to analyze that on a deeper level, but some things in a story aren't meant to be that.
Yeah.
Sometimes the curtains are just blue.
So, analyze every like single detail.
And I feel like the things that should be analyzed are things like character interactions, because those are actually human and people can connect and provide insight on those.
What's a human?
I've been wondering that.
We found him! Everybody, we found him! I'm calling the CIA right now. I'm calling.
So, yes, folks, we thank you for indulging us and welcoming us into your homes once more, and for
Outside of your house now, Scrappy.
and we thank you for letting us go on our letting us tell our personal stories, as this story about anime idols connected with us apparently. And that's really what Storytime with Scrappy is all about.
Yeah. If I can say
We-
like something, just quickly of Watermelon, like, just the way you've wrote this was, done in uh, done in a very good place of respect, and the way it's written is,
For the source material.
yeah, and like the way you've written this is, I think very respectful, and it's really relatable to pretty much all of us here, and it's it definitely just shows the quality of this because it was done in a way that works in universe, and it also just can connect with people in general. Like you don't even need to know anything about Love Live. It's just like a subject matter that's just gonna connect with pretty much anyone, and I think in general you did a really good job here.
this story is like the proof that anime should do more stories about college.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Really resonated with me.
This like there's kind of a John Hughes quality to the story, which I think is
I was
interesting.
thinking that's what I was, especially on the roof.
Hmm.
Especially the roof. Oh. All right, I have to go now.
All right. Yeah, I think we've said our pieces.
We thank you for having us, and we will convene probably next week. We'll see. No one knows anymore. Time has lost all meaning.
Yeah, no, I woke up at like 1 today and then went to a dentist appointment and then I ate and I got drunk.
Oh boy.
That's all I've done today.
That's more than I've done today, so good for you. We thank you, folks, and we wish you good health and a good night.
All right. Good night. Goodbye for now, I guess.
You know, we had like just an hour, 33 minutes, and then we spent like an hour 20 on post dots.